No one lays down the law like Car and Key. This is the Law Report on SAFM.
And a very good evening to you from tonight's Law Report program. Well, as you know, once a month here on the Law Report, we run a legal clinic trying to answer a range of questions on a number of different topics. And tonight, it's again time to open the lines for you to ask that particular legal question that doesn't quite fit into the other topics we discuss here on the Law Report. And I'm very pleased to announce that once again this evening, we're joined by attorney Nicoline Skuman-Loh. She's director of Skuman Law Inc., Attorneys, Conveyancers and Notaries Public. And Nicoline has been away for a few months on maternity leave, and she's back. Nicoline, welcome back, and congratulations on the baby.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Ivan, how old is Ivan now?
He's going on 9 weeks.
Gosh, it doesn't seem that long. You've been away for quite a while now, and Ivan arrived, and we're very glad to have Nicoline back on the show with us this evening. If you have any questions for us, you can call us now on 0892 10 2010, 0892 10 2010. Well, as I mentioned, you can call us now if you have any questions, 0892 10 2010. We only have one email this evening, so if you call in as soon as you want to, we'll be able to get your call on pretty quickly. Just leave your name and number with my producer and we'll call you straight back. Nicoline, I got this email from Tommy, and when I initially read the email, being the cynical person that I am, I thought that Tommy had possibly got himself involved in a bit of a scam, because he said he's paid a whole lot of money. He ordered a set of 16 grade 12 revision practice books on the 9th of March, and he's been personally phoning the manager of the company. Apparently, I'm assuming the books haven't arrived. He's wanting a refund. He can't get hold of the manager. Initially, the manager of this company said, send your bank details and I'll refund you the money. And he's heard nothing since then. And it's been months and months and months. And now he can't get hold of him. He's not replying to his SMSs, not responding to his calls. And he's quite desperate on how to get this money back. So I emailed him back and I said, what is the name of the company, which he this morning sent through to me. But he also, in that email I got this morning, said that he did this last year and everything worked out very well. So obviously this company was legitimate last year and he got his books and he didn't have a problem. But now he's sitting with a problem and now he can't get hold of the company. What does he do?
Well, he's already followed the route of actually trying to resolve the matter internally with the company concerned, and obviously that hasn't led anywhere. It's unfortunately not from what I understand, not a large company. It seems to be fairly small. So you could approach an attorney, for example, and ask the attorney to do a search on the company to see if they are still registered, where is their registered address and so on. If you would like to maybe write a letter to them and demand the return of the money or the delivery of the books. So that is one option. But you need to understand that will obviously have a cost implication for this listener, and it may very well exceed the amount of money that is owed by this company. The other option is, of course, to go and approach the small claims court directly, and then you don't need an attorney. It will be much more cost effective, and actually to issue a summons against this company for A, the delivery of the books, or B, the refund of the money. And hopefully once he's successful and he has a judgment in hand, he can then enforce it against this company.
But now you can't seem to get hold of these people. How do you go to small claims court if you can't give the small claims court any contact information that they're going to use? I mean, this guy isn't responding to him at all.
Yes. They will have to start the process with a physical address in hand. So we don't have enough information to know whether this person has already maybe tried to get hold of a physical address. They could always use Dr. Google and see if you can find anything on the internet, any delivery or physical address for the company. Or the better way is, of course, to do a CIPC search, which generally any attorney can conduct for you against the payment of a fee.
So what is a CIP?
And that's the Registrar of Companies, formerly known as CIPRO. So the first point is really to check where are these guys situated, what is their registered business address, that you have that physical address that you need to serve a summons or a letter of demand. It doesn't really matter if you've got phone numbers or email addresses or fax numbers, SMS, those kind of forms of communication. For court purposes, we really look at physical addresses.
So as long as you can get a physical address, you can go to the small claims court with just that.
The problem and what concerns concerns me, and of course we are going from the stance that this is a properly registered company and not just a sole proprietor or, for lack of a better phrase, a one-man band. We're approaching this on the basis that this is a company. And if this is a company, then of course you go the route of obtaining the registered physical address and so on. The problem is that these type of companies, if you can't reach them or you can't reach the owner or the manager, the MD of the company via phone, as you previously could, there's a good likelihood that if it is a company, it may have been deregistered because they haven't fulfilled certain compliance initiatives, particularly by filing their annual return, which is a bit technical for the question at hand. But the chances are that this is an empty shell or that it no longer exists. And again, I recommend then that the listener approaches an attorney, does that company search. Unfortunately, it's, as far as I'm aware, it's not really publicly available for the general public to do these searches. Unless, of course, the CIPC has a function on their website that I'm not aware of.
Would this be something that possibly a law clinic at a university or legal aid or something would be able to help him with?
Yes, hopefully.
As opposed to having to, because I mean, the amount outstanding is just under R1,000, so it's not
Exactly.
really worth attorney's fees on this one, in my view.
No, not in my view either. Which is why I think it's really better to try and conduct this through the small claims court. And yes, by all means, to approach a legal clinic or legal aid, even if of course the listener qualifies for legal aid.
Right, okay, and before we carry on, I'll give you the number again, 0892 10 20 10. But just a reminder, it's the Law Clinic tonight, so it's things other than labour and property which have their own special program. Apparently, we've had quite a few calls coming in already for labour and property, and those are coming up. So not tonight. Tonight's everything else. But before we get into any calls, Nicoline, excuse me, as I mentioned, Ivan has now arrived. And one of the things, I know your passion, wills and trusts and all those sorts of things. But looking at it from when babies arrive in the family, what should we be doing legally as far as paperwork and things like wills and trusts are concerned? What should we be doing now that babies arrived?
I think, it depends on the couple at hand. It depends on your family's needs and really your goals. So there isn't any fixed recipe as such. It's a bit more complicated than that. But a few things you need to do as a basic starting point. Firstly, although it seems unlikely, the reality is something really bad may happen and you may not end up raising your child as you would have intended, which means you need to think about guardians, godparents, and choose people that you feel would raise your child along the same set of values that you would have. So it's not necessarily within the family that you would make such an appointment. Usually it is, but it's not necessarily. So I always advise couples, think along the lines of values and people that share your values and that would raise your child along the same values as you would have, and stop rather wanting to please the family. So that's the first and foremost point. Secondly, minors cannot inherit in terms of South African law. So if in the unfortunate situation both parents were to pass along at the same time or shortly after each other, you really do need to consider not only who would be physically raising them in terms of being that guardian or godparent I was just talking about, but also about the financial aspect that you'll be leaving behind to look to really cater for things such as schooling and tertiary education, and maybe giving them a bit of a head start in the early working life. So in terms of that, obviously life insurance becomes quite, in my view, quite non-negotiable. You need to have that now. I personally am not a believer in having such insurance unless you have debt or children. So if you have debt, we're thinking along the lines of mortgage bonds or maybe more longer term liabilities. We're not really talking about credit cards and clothing accounts.
Not the short-term debt,
not
basically.
the short-term debt. So you need to make sure that all of those are covered, so that your estate, your deceased estate, has liquidity in it. It has money to pay for all the administrative costs and the taxes if there are any, and then of course to look after the child that gets left behind. So because minors cannot inherit, you need to make sure that you've taken care of them financially by ensuring that there is actually something to inherit. That's the first step, and life insurance is one of the good tools to consider. And secondly, then, of course, to create a trust, particularly a testamentary trust. So it means that only in the event of death, as your will would provide, does the trust come into existence, and then it caters specifically for maintaining the child or children and paying for certain basic needs such as education, school books, uniforms, extracurricular activities, and so forth, until the trust then terminates, which could either be 18, 21, 25, and lately a trend of 35. So it really depends on the parent. And of course, as you get to know your child, you'll know what is most appropriate for setting this up in terms of what it should cater for, and what is a expense that will have a yes next to it, and what is an expense or a request that will be absolutely not considered. So, expensive, lavish holidays, maybe not so much. So it really depends. But those two things, I think, are absolutely fundamental. Everything else, all the other financial planning, for example, establishing different types of trusts, so that you could put family heirlooms or art or all of that into a trust to preserve for your family that you've now started, or perhaps a second or a third property, or those kind of things. That's really where it comes in, that you don't have a fixed recipe. That really depends on your financial situation and your family's aspirations. So at least make sure that there's clarity around who will be taking care of those children. There's clarity around making sure that there is money to put into whichever vehicle you choose. Testamentary trust is something I personally recommend considering.
And also you would need to consider trustees for that trust as well.
Yes, of course. And there may be overlap. I, for example, say as a rule, a default rule, a rule of thumb, that it's good to have the guardian as one of your trustees. Not all, they mustn't be the same persons or persons. Ideally, there should be 3 trustees, and normally there's 2 guardians. So one of the guardians may serve as a trustee, but then you've got 2 other people that should be fairly independent. But strike a bit of a balance, not too independent in terms of maybe a financial institution or so on. It needs to be close to home, in my view. So the guardian serves a good purpose as serving as a trustee, because they know the day-to-day needs of the child or the children. They would know how the child is developing, if there are any challenges, any special needs, because they have that day-to-day interaction. Then maybe a close family member that has some critical skill, maybe an attorney in the family, or an accountant or a tax practitioner, someone that can really bring some skill and expertise to the table. And the third person can just be someone that you trust. Many practitioners also say that the third trustee should or could be the executor of the estate, because the executor will be the one that channels the funds into this trust, and that will manage that process. So from a practical perspective, one needs to think along those lines. Who would be the best role players, maintaining the impartiality, the objectivity that you need, and bringing the critical skill to the table.
The first starting point, in my view, is the fact you need a will. Because
yes, of course.
You need to have that will. But excuse me, if you've got a will, don't think, well, I made the will 10 years ago, it's fine. You maybe haven't got your kids in the will. I'm one of those neurotic people. Every time something happened, there was a new will. I had my will done so many times, I can't tell you. But every time there's a life-changing event of some description, you need to reflect that in your will.
Of course.
Especially when it comes to children.
Especially when it comes to children. What about maybe a child that didn't have special needs at birth, but developed some special need? Or a child that is immensely gifted, and you didn't know that at birth, which you would like to provide for in some way or form in your will or in this trust. So it's really very important. Similarly, if you acquire another fixed property, or you acquire valuable shares or some asset, you need to deal with that in your will as part of proper estate planning. Also, if the marital relationship between you and your spouse were to change, in law there's a rule that if you haven't changed your will within 3 months after a divorce, the 4th month or the day after the 3rd month, let me be very correct, the day after the 3rd month, if you haven't changed it and your ex is still in the will, then it's presumed to have been your intention to have him or her in your will. So, if the unfortunate situation in life also happens, one needs to really provide for that. And I know it's not something everyone thinks about, but we need to make a bit of a mind shift. It's if something were to happen to you, similar to being a business owner, there are employees and all sorts of people that you are accountable to and responsible for, even more so when it comes to your family and your children. So if something changes, you need to speak to someone, get some advice, and deal with it most appropriately.
When it comes to just before we take the next call, I want to make this point. When it comes to the guardians of the child or the children, don't just assume these things, because, you might not want, your cousin, whoever, to take the child. But when it comes to that, maybe the family will think, oh, well, she's the best person to take the child. And that was never what you would have wanted, ever. That's why you need to be specific in the will. You need to name them. Well, first of all, go and speak to the people and say, would you be willing to do this?
Yes,
and
of
then
course.
you need to name them in the will, that these will be, heaven forbid something happens to me and there's no one to look after my children. This is, and you put their name and the ID number or whatever in the will itself.
You need to. And think of the eventuality. If the person that you are choosing, and I'm not talking about your spouse, of course,
Yes,
if something
obviously.
happens to you and your spouse is left behind, then of course there's no need to appoint a guardian, unless of course there are circumstances that the spouse isn't a suitable person for taking care of them. But that's of course a very complicated situation in itself. You need to not only name them for certainty's sake, but of course it avoids conflict. And if this person wants to thinks that they're entitled to and they'll do a better job than that person, the family may actually end up in court fighting over custody and guardianship. But important, if you are choosing someone who you have regular contact with, who you regularly travel with, then it increases the likelihood that that person may, in, for example, a motor vehicle accident, perish with you. And that means if you haven't nominated a second person or a second set of people, in case the first set, your preferred first set, you'll call it Plan B, if you haven't done that, then you may actually have done a full circle and not have nominated anyone at all. So one needs to, I know it sounds very pessimistic, but you need to think
You have to be
along the lines.
realistic. I mean, these things happen, it's not...
Same goes with executors. Don't just appoint one person. Think along the lines, what if that person actually can't do it? Maybe they have too much on their plate at that stage, or they are traveling, or whatever circumstance, or heaven forbid they are ill themselves, or pass on themselves in that same period of time. So you need to always nominate an alternative person for all these important roles that they will be. You need to make sure that you are really looking after that and thinking along the lines of the eventualities of life.
And you thought just having the baby was the thing. There's all this other stuff now that you've got to think about to look after the baby into the future, if heaven forbid you're not there.
Yes, definitely. So, rather get it done. We actually, well, maybe that's just my nature. We started thinking along the lines, okay, who would we want to appoint? And we had the conversations even before Ivan was born. So it depends on how you choose to handle the situation. But I think it's something that you shouldn't do in haste, and take your time. If you are pregnant, maybe it's the time to think along the lines of, what do we want? Who do we want to ask? And of course, if something changes and you don't think those people would be the most appropriate choice in future, then change it. When something happens, maybe it's a friendship that is no longer around, then change your nomination. Don't leave it and don't postpone it.
And very briefly, before we go to the first call, well, you can, but I wouldn't advise nominating the grandparents because, they're a lot older than you.
The reality is it's the same as if you're traveling with someone fairly regularly. Then the likelihood of you actually
outliving
them or passing away simultaneously or shortly after each other just becomes much bigger. And with grandparents, yes, let's be honest, we didn't get married as early as our parents and grandparents may have, which means the age gap is fairly big between our children and our parents, and the likelihood of them actually surviving us is not great. But who knows these things.
Who knows?
But
right.
It will happen in future. That's the only certainty we do have. It's just a question of
death and taxes, the only things you can be absolutely sure of. Right, if you have any questions, 0892 10 20 10. Our first call in Johannesburg. Fran, good evening.
Yes, hi. Most interesting discussion on wills.
Yes, Nicoline's passion.
I took somebody I know during Wills Week.
Oh, well done, Fran.
And thank you so much for keeping me informed about it.
Good. Well, I'm glad you did that, and for somebody, and at least one more person has now got a will.
Yes, right.
That's great. How can we help you?
Now, the question this evening is, I received a message from a courier service that there was a bank card awaiting delivery to me from them. And I found this quite extraordinary because it's come out of the blue. I've had no notification or any sort of intimation from the bank concerned that there was any kind of card that was going to arrive for me. And I've always previously, even if it's the renewal of a card, been told, this is going to be renewed at so-and-so date and you're going to receive it by a courier or at the branch or whatever it is. I've received absolutely nothing of that sort, and I've been wondering if this could be a scam. So what I've done is I've written to the bank so that I can get in writing their assurance that they are actually sending me something without having notified me, which of course I think would have been a good thing. But I do need, I think, to have it in writing from them that this is real.
Nicoline?
Well, from my side, I must say, I've received quite a few deliveries in this way, with and without bank pre-notification. So I don't think per se it is something to be concerned about on the face of it. But maybe try phoning your banker and actually asking them whether this is for you or not. They'll be able to see on their system quite easily. And if you are phoning any bank, they will be giving you a reference number for your call, so that you've got a reference in writing. You can also, with many of the banks, I'm not sure, it's not appropriate for us to name the bank on air. But I know many internet banking facilities actually have the secure message functionality.
Yes, this bank does.
So I would actually send them a secure message on my internet banking profile and then tell them, I received this. Can you please confirm whether on my profile any of my cards are due for renewal? And that way you've got it in writing and you know that it's going somewhere where someone will actually action it. With all due respect to the financial institutions, I've just found that if you are sending it via email, it may end up with an administrator or someone who doesn't necessarily respond to your email. So it may delay things, and even forbid, you want to use this card, you didn't realize it's expired, and, the embarrassment that goes along with a failed payment. So,
Fran, normally if you just look on your card on the expiry date, they normally do this about a month before the expiry date on your actual current card. And the other thing as well is that what Nicoline says, phone the bank rather than write to them, because what happens with these courier services, if this is legitimate, which I'm almost sure it is, but it only stays with them for a while. They will send it back to the bank. and then you're going to have a problem getting it back again. So if I was you, I'd phone the bank to make sure rather than write to them, because it could take too long, and then the card is going to get sent back to the bank.
I don't know quite how long these courier services do hold on.
They're not all that long, Fran. And the other thing, just so that you're aware, they will ask you. Well, it happens to us when we get bank cards. They ask you for a copy of your ID to give to them when they drop off the card. So that's
It's
also
a certified copy.
No, it wasn't I don't think it's a certified copy.
Okay.
No, I'm looking at my producer over there who says no. Basically, it's just a copy of the ID that they'll ask you for. But
or your driver's license.
Or something that's got your picture and an ID number on it. But if I was you, Fran, I'd phone the bank first thing in the morning just to double check. Don't wait for a letter, because the card might end up going back to the bank.
I've never actually had a card from this bank. So it's not a repeat. It would be a first time.
That does sound strange then.
Yes, I thought so.
Oh, have you not got a card? Well, did you apply for the card?
No.
Oh, well then no. Then this
has
isn't.
come out of the blue.
Oh.
I don't think it's a scam necessarily, but it may be a way. I mean, this was quite a well-known methodology to use on the part of the financial institutions to get you to apply for credit.
But they were not allowed to do that
But
anymore.
they're not allowed to do that anymore. So it could be that they are intending to open the door to a credit facility, which of course
just be careful.
If it is that, then I would recommend actually reporting it to the National Credit Regulator.
Unfortunately, this bank isn't in this country.
Oh,
that's even worse. No,
okay,
Fran,
so,
no, seriously.
No, then I think now
it's
that
a reputable overseas bank.
Okay, no, well then.
Have you had no dealings in that particular country or with any financial institutions?
Oh yes, and my husband and I have got a joint account, and he's got a debit card and this sort
at that
of
bank.
thing. But we've only put it in my name as well in case something happens to him.
Oh, okay. So there is some connection. It wasn't just a bank that you'd never heard of from somewhere that you'd
No.
never.
It's
Okay.
not an unknown quantity.
Oh, right. Okay. All right.
Yes.
No, it's starting to sound like it could possibly be okay. If your name is on the bank account, they might be wanting you just to have your own card or something. But double checking it's possibly the best thing to do.
I think, as you said, Karen, I think do the phone call, follow it up maybe with a secure message to say, I phoned, this is my reference number that I was given over the phone, please confirm as discussed, or whatever you require in confirmation. And then if you don't want it, I mean, don't accept it. Don't go any further.
Luckily, it's a free card, possibly. I certainly don't want credit cards.
Well, they say there's
No,
no such thing as a free lunch, Fran. You'll end up doing something with it's going to cost you something, because they always charge administrative costs on a card, always. I think every bank does that. So somewhere along the line, they're going to charge you administrative costs on that card. So if you don't want it, I would just first phone to find out if it's genuine, and secondly, if you don't want it, don't take it.
Okay, thank you for your advice.
Okay, Fran, thanks for the call.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks, bye-bye. Right, gosh, no, I was talking about scams on the show last week, and there's another scam now I'm going to talk about on Wednesday night on my travel show. I can't keep up with all these things.
It's scary. It's
very
absolutely scary. We are finding that our law society, as well as other regulatory bodies, are actually issuing guidelines almost on a monthly basis of beware, look out for this, maybe implement these internal systems. Don't look at that. No, it's becoming
a full-time job now.
Quite a minefield to navigate through.
That's a full-time job, looking out for scams, Right, let's go off to Durban. Raymond, good evening.
Speaking about Rotterdam Fund in Durban, it's about my accident. Rotterdam just took place on the 17th of September 2007, right? But now the papers were issued. I don't know if I can call them in the air. But these lawyers issued what they did. They sent claim forms to RAF. What they failed to do was to summon papers accordingly, and my thing prescribed.
Okay, so basically, Raymond, if I got the story straight, there was a road accident fund claim in 2007, and the attorneys didn't do a proper job, and now then the claim prescribed. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
Okay.
See, can I say, if I can tell you, I had this, if I can tell Colm, I've got this, legal-wise, see, issue them or notice of withdrawal that they must withdraw because on several occasions they were not helping me. In April, that was a year ago. But then these lawyers, instead of bringing letting go of the file, they waited until a month. They refused until a month after my this thing had prescribed. Only then did they not. In fact, they didn't even bring those papers, which you call them the file. I had to go and physically get the papers from them, and those papers they themselves are saying that they withdrew. They did withdraw, but they did not bring the papers back in time for any lawyer, including legal wise, to act on my behalf.
Okay, so
hence the prescription.
So you wanting to know what you can do about the fact that those lawyers didn't do their job properly?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Now, would this be something you would report to the Law Society? But now it's 2007.
Yeah.
Raymond, just hold on a second.
That's.
So if I can add, those papers which look to me like they state stamped the 10th September 2009 from Road Accident Fund, which proves that they said those people, Road Accident Fund said they cannot help me because I already have got that lawyer, but that lawyer was sitting on the job. So I had to go back to complain to the lawyer. I asked the lawyer if he is waiting until I die until process the things. He laughed at me and he said, no, he is going to do his job.
Okay,
he knows how to do his job.
Okay, Raymond, just hold on one moment. Nicoline.
This is definitely something that can be reported to the Law Society within the area that the claim was sought and the attorneys are situated. So it's definitely something that you can report to the disciplinary department of the local Law Society. They can then investigate whether or not the attorney is guilty of unprofessional behavior. In addition to that, you can obviously claim against the attorney the amount that you think you would have gotten from the road accident fund had the case been handled appropriately. It does concern me, though, that the accident happened in 2007 and we are in 2016 already. So your claim against this attorney may itself have as prescribed already, but it depends on the circumstances, and I think it's worth a while, even if it's just to give you some peace of mind, for you to run this past another attorney, preferably someone that is recommended by the Law Society, just to check if it has prescribed or not. Importantly, don't wait with this any longer. Make sure that you contact the Law Society as early as tomorrow, please, and get a referral for another attorney that can just see if there is any way that you could still act against the first attorney that has let you down, and then potentially claim from them or their insurance.
Raymond, I'm going to put you back to my producer now. Have you got an email address?
No.
Okay, I've got your cell phone number. What I'm going to do is I will send you an SMS later with the contact details of the Law Society closest to you that you can contact tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, and if it can, I can tell you, another lawyer was approached by legal advisors on my behalf. And then those lawyers were thinking that they are still fighting the case, only for them they even summoned this lawyer to come and contest in the court.
Okay,
but then the said lawyers says attorney's insurance indemnity fund. Yes, those people, but it was said that no, because I withdrew their mandate. Now their mandate was withdrawn terminously before fiction date, but they refused and only handed over the file after the prescription. So even this other lawyer now complaining, he said he can no longer handle this case. I must I must try to against this lawyer, or the first lawyer.
Okay, Raymond, I'm going to SMS you and give you the contact details for the Law Society closest to you, and hopefully they'll be able to put you on the right path. So I'll send you those details a bit later. Right, we're back with the calls and we're off to Pretoria. Daniel, good evening.
Good evening, Karen.
Hello, how can we help you, Daniel?
All right. I have a case that I would need some advice from the legal profession.
Okay, what is the story?
All right. My brother arrived in South Africa in January 2007, and he went to Home Affairs, registered his case to the Home Affairs Reception Center. He was given 6 months, and later in the year, he went to the renewal, and was given an appeal. He wrote it and took back. To 2009, they changed the date of arrival. He continued, and when I looked at their website, I found that if they give you 6 months, it's the first time they have to look into your case to determine whether you qualify or not. If it goes again, they give you another 6 months. Actually, their period is between 6 months to 2 years that you must have been determined as a refugee. But it's now getting to 10 years. He's still on seeking asylum on the paper that's renewable as you are still seeking, and has never been allowed to enroll as a lecturer. He did his BEd and the Master's in Physical Science and Mathematics, but he just teaches on pitch jobs that, an agreement between the principal and him. He cannot be enrolled with the department, and he can't get even the small amount that he receives. You can't go and open a bank account with asylum seek. My question is if somebody stayed in the Republic for 6 years, it's a duration that could render someone to become almost a permanent citizen or a citizen, permanent resident citizen. And now somebody is still legally in the country but seeking asylum for 10 years. That's why I wanted to have some advice.
Well, this is a very specialist field, actually. Personally, although we do deal with immigration law, we actually don't deal with any asylum seekers or with any refugee permits, unfortunately. So my knowledge is fairly limited in this regard. So I have to give you this disclaimer before I attempt your question. Obviously, your access to the courts is still open. Under different regulations, we have been involved in a few court applications that have been brought in order to get the department to consider applications, or if there's been a mistake in the refusal of a permit. So there is legal recourse in order to ensure that administrative justice has been sought. And this is really an administrative procedure which you could then insist on being processed fairly. So if there are grounds, let's say grounds of contributing positively to the country and so on, I'm sure one could consider launching an application to court to get some finality in this regard. So the best would really be to speak to an attorney who specializes in immigration law, but specifically in asylum seekers and refugees and their status and getting it legitimized.
Because, as you said, it is a very specialized area of the law.
It's a very specialized area, and very few firms actually do deal with it. But I'm sure you can, by phoning the Law Society, you can find someone who does specialize in it. And even if you just go for a consultation and find out exactly how the regulations interact with our normal immigration regulations and what your recourse could be. But as a general comment, you can definitely approach the courts in some way or form. I'm quite sure. And if you can make out a good case, I can't see how.
Daniel, do you have an email address available?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to put you back to my producer and give him the email address, and I will then email you the contact details for the Law Society of the Northern Provinces, and hopefully they'll be able to put you on to somebody that could assist you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, Daniel,
Good luck,
thanks very much. Hold the line.
Right.
Good night to you. Bye-bye. Right, Stanley in Springs, good evening.
Hello, Glenn, for you.
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks a lot for taking my calls, and also greeting your guests in the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you. How can we help you, Stanley?
Okay, I just want to understand, man. So, please help me, man. I just want to understand in this case. Let's say the parties are married in communal property, and then either of the spouse is executing a will. So then he nominates, maybe for instance, his siblings, whoever he wants to nominate in his will, but he disinherits his other spouse. What happens then? Is it allowed in terms of South African law?
Well, firstly, I think we must make it quite clear that the spouse married in community of property can only bequeath his or her 50% of that estate. In other words, you can't, if there's let's say a house and some bank accounts, you can't bequeath the whole house to someone else. You only, as part of a marriage in community of property, you only own that 50% of that property. So only that portion can be bequeathed in a will. The other thing that we need to consider or need to be mindful of is that you cannot disinherit your spouse easily. There's a piece of legislation called the Maintenance of Surviving Spouses Act, which protects spouses from being disinherited. And if you were to try and disinherit your spouse could then, after death or after your death, put in a claim against your estate, even if he or she is not mentioned in the will, and claim a monthly amount or a portion of the estate, even though they haven't been mentioned in the will. And the rationale behind that is that if you are married, you undertake to a joint responsibility of care and maintenance towards your spouse. In other words, that you'll look after each other financially and emotionally. So if you pass away, the theory is that responsibility doesn't end, and therefore you shouldn't disinherit your spouse. And if you do, that spouse does have a claim in terms of this legislation. So I wouldn't recommend it.
Oh, okay. So the last question I just want to know if the will was executed outside the country, then the husband dies in South Africa. So does the surviving spouse have to travel all the way, maybe from South Africa to that foreign country?
No, not necessarily. If the will that is executed in the foreign country no one is contesting its authenticity, then you can use it in any country. It's about where the person lived just before they passed away. So if they were living in South Africa, in a particular area of South Africa for 2 years prior to their death, that is where the estate will be handled.
Okay. No, thanks a lot, man, for your advice. Because the only reason why I'm asking this question is that I'm living from rural areas, so there's still a lack of information. People don't really know exactly where to expect the right, where to go and do all those things. So thanks a lot. I think I'm so well satisfied.
Thank you,
It's
Stanley.
only a pleasure.
That's why we do these shows every Monday evening, because we try and help and get the information out there, because a lot of times the information doesn't seem to get to everybody. So hopefully the Monday Night Law programs are doing their bit to help people find out stuff they didn't know before. I'm learning stuff I didn't know before, so hopefully you all are too. Right, back to Cape Town. Fikele, good evening.
Good evening, Karen. Thank you guys for taking my call. And hello, good evening to your guests as well.
Thank you, Fikele. How can we help you?
Caller, as you know in your show, and I was calling you for the very same thing, but now this time it has changed. After 10 years of me trying to get justice, of some unlawful arrest happened to me, and the unlawful arrest happened in Maitland.
Oh, it's a train.
Finally today, I got what was blocking me from getting any claim or any lawyer to help me since 2006. But right now, as I speak to you today, I got the information proving that indeed I was in cells, and there was no case opened against me, and there were some stolen properties, and the police that actually did some unlawful arrest to me actually resigned. And what now happens that some names were changed. My first names were changed, but my surname is the right one and the right ID number. And it took me to actually make a request to the minister to actually allow me and to give me a permission to speak to the provincial commissioner, which is General Jula. After some cover-ups were done in written letter by General Lamour writing to Minister Nasim Kego saying that I was mad. There is lies that in writing is lies that I had so much unlawful arrest happen to me in Maitland and other places. It's written down. The letter was not meant for me, but it accidentally, by luck, came to my attention, that letter that was meant for Natim Tetwa. Anula Muru was saying some stuff about me, a lot of lies about me, that all the things that I was saying is lies. I was never unlawfully arrested. So I could prove today. But now I need to know, because I'm not so lucky when it comes to lawyers. And a law society and legal aid board cannot assist me with this matter. For sure, because the legal aid board now is coming captured by the state. They said that no, they cannot allow people, members of the public, to go to legal aid board.
Fikele, let me just correct you there. We can't assume that the legal aid board has been captured by the state. There's no evidence of that, and legal aid is helping a lot of people. So we shouldn't be saying things like legal aid has been captured by the state. So you've now got to the point where now you're looking for an attorney, and you're wanting to know where you can go to find one. Is that basically what you're asking?
Definitely, Karen, because right now I still stand a very huge chance of claiming, because the letter was obtained by Canon Lamour.
All right. So if he and he doesn't want to go to legal aid, have you tried the law clinic at the university?
Sorry, ma'am?
Have you? Well, the universities aren't really functioning terribly much at the moment, but there are law clinics at the universities as well.
I doubt them, because they are saying to me as a legal aid board, I doubt them.
No, they are independent from the legal aid.
It's got nothing to do with the legal aid board.
Like which one, for instance?
Well, all the universities will have a law department, will have a law clinic. Yeah. I don't know whether any of them are functioning at the moment, though, with all the problems on campus, but they do have that sort of, they do have that available. They're also pro bono attorneys. There's an organization called probono.org that possibly deals with that. I'm not sure in this sort of case, though, if they take this sort of case.
This is a very specialized case, but I'm sure if you at least get through to an attorney, then you can go and see them, and if they can't help you, I'm sure they can put you onto someone who could.
Which I think is again, ma'am, I'm sorry, I didn't catch you there. Do you mind if I ask you can just ask me their number, or maybe email me their number, and their collective, their address and their names and email address, if you can, please, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to put you back to my producer and give him your email address, and we'll send you some information. Okay.
Okay then.
Thank you, Fikele. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Good luck.
All right. Bye bye. Right. Probably our last call for the evening. Mpongi in Limpopo. Good evening.
Oh, good evening, ladies.
Hello. How can we help you, Mpongi?
Yes. Kindly give me more information as regards establishing a trust. One, can I have any attorney to help me establish a trust, or is it a specialist area that needs a specialist lawyer? I'm a layman, so I don't understand how these things work.
You and me both, Mpongi, we need lawyers for trusts and things. They're very complicated things, but what I know of them.
Well, firstly, you get different types of trusts. You get a trust between the living, or called an inter vivos trust, or a testamentary trust. Now,
okay, let me say, I'm a single parent. There is the kind of a trust in which I could leave some liquid assets in case I'm no more. Obviously, I'm going to be no more at some stage or the other. Okay. my children, what kind of a trust could I establish, and is it established only by estate planning lawyers, or can any attorney help me establish a trust? How much does it cost, more or less? Is it
it really depends. Yes. Well, any attorney in theory could help you set this up because all of us are trained in drafting properly. However, I would recommend that you rather go to someone who specializes in estates and wills and trusts because they would be up to date with all the latest developments and not necessarily give you something out of a textbook or a template. It would really be something that would work for you and your family. So go to someone who's a specialist in the field. By the sounds of it, I think a testamentary trust would be your best bet, unless, of course, you want the trust to be operational now already so that you can start putting certain things into that trust. For example, a property or so on. So it depends if you want to start putting things into it now or if you only want it to operate in the event that you pass away and you need financial means to look after your children, and you need that to be protected. So if the second mentioned sounds more right, then rather go for a testamentary trust. But of course, whoever you get to set this up for you, just tell them, obviously we don't have as much time now to go through it carefully and properly, but make sure that you choose the right type and that they set it up properly for you. A testamentary trust is set up as part of your will.
Okay. So, are there monthly costs for a trust?
No, not at all.
Once off, and is it on percentage of the liquid assets I have, or what?
The trust, if you choose a testamentary trust, doesn't come into existence until you pass away. So until the will gets read. And there isn't any fees other than what you pay the attorney to do the drafting for you, to draft the will and to set it up for you. So that'll be, in my view, shouldn't be more than in total for consultation and for drafting the will and the trust deed shouldn't be more than about 5,000 Rand. But of course, it depends what you want in it. It could be more if you want to set up a very complicated structure, but it should be a little less or maybe a little more than about 5,000 Rand, VAT and everything inclusive. So just that's very much a thumbs up estimation on my part, but just quickly crunching the numbers of what the charges out there are market related. So that's what it should.
Will I be eligible to put in to include my life cover?
Yes.
Or as part of the...
Yes, then you go to your insurer and you change the beneficiary to your estate. And then it will automatically go in there. Yes. And then you must just make sure that your will really encapsulates exactly what you want to happen with everything. So that's why I'm saying it's better to go to someone who does this every day.
Mpongi, I don't know whether you'd like me to possibly send you the contact details for the Law Society in your area, and then you can possibly contact them and they can recommend an attorney who deals in this field so that you get the correct attorney.
Very instrumental. Thank you so much.
You're also more than welcome to have a look at our website. We've got quite a lot of information also about the different types of trusts that you get and the pros and cons of each. Maybe just to prepare yourself for meeting with this other attorney and that you know a few things.
Which I presume Karen would also send to me.
Yes, I will send you all that information, Mpongi. I'll put it all in the email, the Law Society plus Nicoline's website address. There's loads of actually information on that website. You should all go and have a look at that. Lots of stuff there. I'll send you all of that, and then you can have a look and see exactly what it is you need to do.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mpongi. Hold the line. Right, well, we got through all of that. Lots of wills and trusts and looking after our children, which was great. My thanks once again this evening to Nicoline Skuman-Low, Director of Skuman Law Inc., Attorneys, Conveyancers and Notaries, Public Practicing here in Cape Town. And she's been my guest on tonight's edition of the Law Report programme. And we'll be doing another law clinic on Monday, the 14th of November. Nicoline, once again, thanks so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
The Law Report is on the air on SAFM every Monday evening between 9 and 10. In next week's programme, we'll be talking about the new Constitutional Court ruling on emoluments attachment orders or garnishee orders. a new online platform to help small businesses and SMEs to get started with their business paperwork, and a new green paper on immigration. So tune in for that next week. That's next Monday, the 17th of October. And I'll be back with you again tomorrow evening, just after 9, with Health Matters. It's our monthly phone-in, and this month we'll be focusing on diabetes with Dr. Sandeep Ruda. So join me for that.